Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning. I'm out in the shop, and I want to first say thank you to everyone who responded to my video yesterday about potential issues that I could check or things I could check on the receiver to try to get it fixed. And you know how you call tech support for your computer, and the first thing they say is, "Have you rebooted the computer yet?" That's kind of what what this problem was, and I have the problem solved. And thank you so much to Mike Canfield, okay, because Mike is the guy who responded to me and said, hey, have you tried hooking another receiver to those speakers to see if maybe one of the coils or the crossover electrical parts in the speakers have gone bad? And I thought, well, yeah, I haven't tried that. I can try it, but gee, surely it would just be one speaker, not both of them at the same time. Nope, both of them at the same time. Check this out. I have another receiver in the house, but it's my main receiver, and it's basically hooked up to my stereo, and there's like 1,000 wires running to it. So instead of bringing the receiver out, I thought, let's bring a speaker out. It's simple, it's compact, it's small. So I brought a speaker out, and I got some speaker wire, and you'll see I've got it hooked. I don't know if that's left or right channel, but I've got it hooked up, and let me give you a little bit of volume. Now, I've got a radio station here, so I'm not going to play it long because I don't know what they might be playing, and I don't want a copyright infringement, but let me just show you something. Plenty of volume there. I don't know what kind of song that was. Let me do something. I'm going to shut the camera off. We're going to flip to the other set. We're going to try all 3 of these other speaker outputs and just make sure everything's working. Switch the cables to the other channel. Give it a little bit of volume. Plenty of volume there. I'm going to now switch back to, I don't know if this is B. I guess I'm on B, so I'll switch to A, and we'll see how the A speakers sound, the speakers on the A channel sound. You can see we've switched the wires. Sometimes everybody else. That sounds pretty good. Let's test the last port. Got the wires moved. Let's give it a little bit of volume. Once again, I want to say thank you to Mike Canfield. Sometimes it's the solution that is literally the simplest and right in front of your face that you miss. And that's all it was, is those 2 speakers back there evidently have some type of a problem, maybe a crossover or something in them. I don't know. Maybe they weren't rated for the volume. I told you guys when I was playing this, I was washing my car in the driveway, and I had the stereo set on 8. Maybe that was just too high. Maybe they just couldn't handle that level of input. Now, the question I want to ask you guys is, the speakers still play, but there's no volume in it. Is it worth taking a speaker down, pulling the back off of it, and seeing if there's any type of a component in there? And if there is that something that I can purchase online and replace? You guys let me know. You've been so helpful so far. This is great. I'm going to get this turntable. I got a turntable out here too, I'll tell you about in a minute. I'm going to get this receiver put back together, and I'm going to get it reinstalled and ready to go. And depending on the answer I have from you guys, whether you think those can be fixed or whether you think it's just a wash and I need to go ahead and get a new set of speakers, is how I'll proceed. But at least I know my receiver is ready to roll as soon as I'm able to get them fixed or replaced. Let me tell you about another project I got going out here today. I have my turntable out in the shop, and the reason why I have it out here is for Christmas, one of my older boys, I bought him 8 or 10 albums, and all weekend long, we listened to the albums, and we really enjoyed them. And one of my younger sons requested a couple of albums, and his albums are newer groups. So when I bought them at the record store, one of them was like 220 grams or something like that. I forget. It's really thick, which is great. That's a great pressing. What happens is, as this thing spins, the platen spins, see those 2 nubbins right there? Let me put a little pressure on here. Hear that? We would hear that little shushing noise. And what I found that it was is, notice how close that is to the base of the turntable. Let me reach under here and show you what should happen. See that? Now, that's about how it should be. I think what's happened is, inside this turntable, there are springs and there are little pads. I'm betting the little pads wore out. I had this same problem on the turntable that I put together for my older son. There were these little foam pads, 4 of them on each corner of the turntable, you know, below the feet. There's like a foot and a spring on the foot and then a pad. And when I opened it up, those little pads, as you touch them, crumbled to dust. Now, I've had this turntable since, oh my gosh, it was sometime in the 80s. 83 maybe, I'm going to guess. That's a long time. I'll bet you I've got the same problem because that thing shouldn't be setting that low. It should be higher and springier. And that particular album, 200 gram album, should be nothing for this turntable. It should be no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the turntable, the bottom to the turntable, and I'm going to take a look at each of the feet and the springs. I'm going to look to see if I can, I made pads for his. I'll do the same thing if that's what it needs. If not, then I'm going to look to see if there's any type of an adjustment that I can make. I need to raise that up a little bit so that I have not such a tight tolerance between the armature and the base or the top of the turntable, and also so that the platen is raised up just a little bit. So we're gonna work on that and see what we can do. I don't think that one's gonna be that bad. Other than that, it plays beautifully. It's just the heavier gauge vinyl, which is really what gives the better sound. That thicker vinyl is great, is causing a little bit of a problem. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna work on here. So first thing I'm gonna do is get this other receiver put back together and remount it in the loft. Wow, that was a job. It took forever to put that thing back together. There were so many screws I had removed, and I got down to the end and I had 2 screws I couldn't find. And I dug and I dug and I dug and I finally found where they came out of. But I got it remounted. I got all the cables wired back up. I've tested left and right channel even though there's no volume. But these are not some super expensive speakers. They're I picked them up at a garage sale. There's some Panasonics. You know, I think there is a 1, 2, I think there's 3 speakers in there. 2 larger speakers and a smaller speaker. I can't remember. I've had the back off once before, but it's been a long time. But if you know anything at all about speakers, chime in and let me know. Would it be worth taking the components out of one of those speakers, which I think it's what they call the crossover? Would it be worth taking that out and replacing it? You know, I'd be curious to find out what your thoughts are, because that's really my next step, is either to purchase new crossovers for both of those speakers or to purchase new speakers. So I'd like to spend the least amount as possible, obviously. But I'm going to get over here and start working on this turntable, and I'll let you know how it goes. I'm working on my turntable, and I know what the issue is, but I haven't figured out how to fix it yet. Notice that tray, how far down it hangs. Now watch the armature as I push up on the tray. See how it raises it up? That tray needs to set a little higher. Now, as I look at the feet underneath of here, there's a spring on each of the feet, but the spring is actually on the outside of the tray, which means it's pushing the tray down. That's what gives it, I guess, the spring up and down like this. There's got to be something on the inside of there that I can adjust, because if I can take that up just a little bit, like about that much, that fixes the entire problem where the heavier records cause the platen to rub on these 2 little knobs over here. So I'm reluctant to take it apart, but I don't see where I have an issue. I've got to get inside and find out, you know, how it can be adjusted, because looking at the bottom of it, I've had it flipped over on that towel so I wouldn't tear it up or anything. But looking at the bottom of it, I've got the 4 feet. Let me flip it over and I'll show you what they look like. Here are the feet. Let's take a look at this one here. This is one of the back feet, and you can see there's a spring, and it's got this little rubber boot, and the spring sits on the outside of this tray, which means it would push this tray away from the top of the turntable. It's the same on all 4 of them, so I know it's not a fluke. That's not installed incorrectly or anything. It's perfect, but I just don't see anything on the bottom of here that offers me any adjustment. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know. I'm going to fiddle with it and just be very careful, but I think I'm going to end up removing the plastic top from the turntable to be able to look at this lower piece and try to figure out how I can make just the tiniest adjustment just to get that, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, so that I can avoid that rub. Other than that, it plays fine. But the problem is, if I let it continue to play with the rub that it has, what will happen is it'll slow the record down each time it rubs, right? So it's going to change the sound quality, which is not going to be good for the turntable. It's not going to be good for the album. It's not going to be good for the stylus. So I just got to figure out how to adjust it. I wanted to show you what I found because I thought this was interesting. If this flips over, this is actually the right side, this is the left side. But take a look at this. This is the foot, and I just removed one screw, and it pops right out. That came out of the left side of the unit, and the spring and the little rubber foot came out with it. Look at the foot that came out of the right side of the unit. The spring stays in there, and it's seated. And then this just basically sets on it. So something tells me that this one is obviously not working properly, and I don't know. I can see as I look down in there, see how far down that little plastic piece is? Look at this one, how close it is. I'm wondering if this has gotten jammed down and it's stuck in there. What I'm going to do is take the front two out to see if they come out with the whole component. Then I know that that spring has gotten jammed down inside of this little circle area of the piece, of the foot piece, or the foot well, we'll call it, and it's not letting it spring back. So let's check these out and see what happens. I removed the two front feet, and look how they came out exactly like the left side foot. So what that tells me is this foot has come loose, which is allowing this to spring up really high, which is causing this to push down on this side. So in other words, this one's still gripping, but that one's pushing up, so it's putting it at a bit of a bind. So I've got to get this spring stuck back into this well, and that may be all that I need to level this unit up. So I'm going to work with it a little bit, be very careful. I'm going to go ahead and put the other feet back in so nothing pops loose, and then I'm going to work with the left side of the unit here. Let me get around back. Can I see anything? Nah, I can't really see anything interesting back there, but I think that's just popped out, so it's letting it. The left side has a much wider gap, right? And that makes the right side have a much smaller gap because it's in a bind. That may be what I'm facing. Let me see what I can come up with. I learned something new. This piece that looked like sort of a well for the foot is actually part of the rubber grommet at the top. I guess it's just dry rotted and come off. It should be setting like this. Now, none of them do. All of them have separated. Every single one of them. There's no way to fix that, and I don't know if I can buy that boot online. This is a JVC LL1 linear tracking turntable, and I've looked a little bit. I didn't look much, but I haven't found anything. But yeah, that's part of the problem. So, oh boy. Yeah, I think age is just getting the best of this machine, but I'm going to try to put this back in and see what I can do. A little frustrating. Yeah, see, it's supposed to be like that, and then that would screw in, and then as you tighten down the screw, it will extend this a little bit, and that's what gives it its bounce. When you press down on the top of the turntable, it gives it a little bit of bounce. Yeah, okay. Boy, every time you think you find something, you find you're wrong. That's typical, but we'll keep working on this. Like I said, I just need to find some way to raise that a tiny bit and still let it have some spring so that, you know, if you walk across the room, the vibration on the floor doesn't cause the record to skip. I determined that the left side is the issue because if you look at the arm, notice it's slightly above the deck there, and it's angled down. So that's what I was talking about. This thing is sitting at an angle. It's in a bind. If I pull up just a little bit on this side, that gives you a nice even amount of space between the deck and the armature. And also what that does is that, I don't know if you can see this or not, but if I raise up, notice how that spindle moves up just a little bit. That spindle is sitting like this. That levels that spindle, which means that the turntable is not, or the platen on the turntable is not sitting like this, and it's not going to rub. So we got to figure out how to raise this left side. Just, I mean, 1/32 of an inch is all I need. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Maybe I can go in there and shim it. I don't know. I'll take a look and see what I can come up with. If you take a look at the armature now, you can see
It's pretty much level on both sides. Sorry about the twist tie. I got to keep the arm from flopping around and messing my stylus up. What I ended up doing, and I need to trim it up a little more, is I put a cork spacer between the foot and the bottom of the turntable. It's still going to be able to absorb the shock, but that spacer gave me just enough room to level that up, and I should not have an issue now with the weight of a 220 gram album causing the platen table to rub on these two little nubbins here. So next thing is for me to get this back in the house, get it plugged up, and then I'll let my son play his record and see what happens. I just came from reattaching and testing the turntable. Plays beautifully. We took his record that was causing the problem, put it on there, we started it up, let it begin playing, walked back and forth. He and I both were walking back and forth across the room, you know, creating vibration. If you press on the platen, it's still got quite a bit of spring to it. So it stiffened it up a tiny bit, but I figure it's probably a little loose because those feet, those rubber caps for the feet have just basically dry rotted. But it stiffened it up a little bit. The only thing it couldn't take, we jumped. When I jumped in front of the stereo, it did skip a little bit. But that's a pretty big jolt. You know, basically what you're trying to avoid is just someone walking across the room and the needle starting to kind of, you know, bounce on the record. So that is fixed. I'm 100% happy. I don't know what I want to do. I was thinking about taking one of those speakers down and looking at it because I think, you know, what else am I going to do today, right? But I think I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to goof off a little bit and see what else I can get into. I've got a couple of ideas in my book for things I want to work on. I got my penny cutting I can work on. I've got my lathe over there. Oh, yes. I looked online, and these spindles, the interior hole on a 45 RPM record is 1.5 inches. So I set my calipers to 1.5 inches. It looks like they've already shut off. Locked them down, and when I tested it, let me flip around. This is the one that came with the turntable, and you can see there's a little bit of play. Now this is the one I know I messed up. I sanded it way too far, and you can see that there's a tiny bit of play. The one that you saw with the turntable, I don't know if you saw it or not, but the one that had the 3 grooves in it that I was using, or that I'm going to use with that turntable, it fits the same as this one. So it's got that little bit of slop in it, and I guess it has to have that because, you know, perhaps the interior diameter of record, I don't know, plastic has different properties, and some plastics can change shape based on temperature. You know, they can expand or contract. I don't know much about vinyl. I don't know a lot about the properties of vinyl, so I don't know if that's the case, but I would imagine you need a little bit of slop in there also to account for different manufacturers. Probably, maybe they were a little off when they put the hole, when they molded the record and created the hole in the center of it. So I'm happy with what I've created. I think it's time to document what I'm doing, and I've made enough of them now to where I've got some ideas for improvement, and I want to make, I think I mentioned a special tool, so it's time for me to start thinking about that. So maybe I'll work on that today. I really don't know what I'm going to do right now. I don't have a plan, but I will keep you posted as things happen. I decided to take a shot at making another one of these 45 RPM inserts, and this time I incorporated my Novichok with the larger jaws, and I'm going to use the Barracuda with the smaller jaws instead of doing a jaw change. I got the piece parted off of the rod, and I went to drill the hole down the center, and I was using one of these starter bits, except it was a smaller size. I was going to drill a smaller hole and then work my way up to a larger hole, and the high-speed tip broke off inside of the aluminum. So I tried using a drill bit and drilling it out with no avail. I mean, it's high-speed steel, so it's a hard steel. It just was a cheap enough bit where it broke. So what's going to have to happen is I don't know that I'm going to mess with this. I think I'll just pull this disc out and toss it for now. I mean, you know, I've got plenty to work with, and we'll go back and cut another slice off and start over and hopefully have better luck next time around. Next time around will probably be next trip to the shop for me because, you know, it's getting later in the evening. I'm getting tired. I think I want to go in, edit this video, and work on a few things in the house. It's really cold out here, which, you know, just makes hands and everything kind of ache. So I think I'm going to call it quits for today. But like I said, I'm off all week. I hope to be back out here tomorrow. Well, maybe not tomorrow, maybe Wednesday.
And I'm going to make another one. Like I said, I want to improve on the process as best as I can and make them as efficiently as I can. And I'm getting close. You know, like I said, today I was going to document what I was doing. But that's it for me, guys. I'm calling it quits, and I'll keep you posted the next couple of days on anything that happens in and around the shop.